Hi there, everybody. My name is Kevin Newman. I'm a broadcaster in Canada, kind of retired, but I'm happy to be joined today by a good friend and colleague, Jeff Hauswirth, who is someone who myself and many other people in positions of leadership turn to discuss leadership because he has, through a very long career, how many years, Jeff?
30, unfortunately.
Through 30 solid quality years, has been helping to place CEOs and senior leaders in important positions. And most recently, of course, as vice chairman of Ferguson Partners in Canada. It's good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
So I was a leader in various, newsrooms in my career, and I always liked, on a personal and even occasionally on a professional level, just our discussions around some of the obstacles that leaders face. And man, has leadership ever been through that in the last couple of months. When leaders look at obstacles, is it just, those problems that pile up on a desk to be solved, or is there something more to it than that?
Yeah, it's a topic that I find really fascinating. When I think of really successful leaders, it's that they've turned those obstacles into opportunities. And I think of, they swim against the current. They don't go with the current. And so, lots of people like to go with the current. And the reason why they turn it into opportunities is because it forces you to think differently than you would if you're just going with the current. And that unveils opportunities. So I think obstacles are opportunities. And if you look at it that way, it's not painful, but rather it's opportunistic.
So, it's not just a matter of looking at the problems that inevitably, if you're a leader, land on your desk at a rapid pace. It's seeing which ones of those, require an immediate solution, but actually seeing them, I think you're saying, in a different and deeper way. So what's one way that a leader can look at a problem that's landed on his desk and see it for what it is, see its full potential?
Yeah, we all have biases. And so you have to check yourself at the door and I think be really self-aware about what those biases are. And it's very hard to be objective about one's subjective self. This is a little corny, but it's one that I've thought about, and it's simple, so it's good for me, is, people say it was meant to be. People say that. I don't think that's true. But people use that almost as an excuse when something didn't go right. So I think we need to challenge these folklore statements that people make or think and put them off to the side and really take a look at it in a independent way as possible.
So separate yourself from the problem, understand your own ego, I guess. I mean, with all of the people that you have helped place in positions of leadership, what biases do you find leaders that may need to challenge themselves on?
When I look at really successful leaders who have done great things for the organizations they're leading, I would observe a number of things. One is, if they're in a room with 8 or 9 other executives, they're often the last person to talk. Right? That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. They are collaborative. They create a northern star. So an audacious goal to strive for. So that, we're going to get to Mount Everest and all the obstacles that go along with that. And actually, it's a team sport. It's not a solo sport. I think, Kevin, they're ambitious for the cause. They're not ambitious for themselves. A lot of CEOs become ambitious for themselves with the passage of time because they start to believe that they are the sole author of the success. So it's not one thing where you just check your biases once. I think a leader has to check them every day, which is hard work, which is really, really, really hard work, because it's easier to just say, well, I did it this way and it worked. But that doesn't mean it's going to work again.
So a high level of self-awareness, you seem to be suggesting, is that
Correct.
When you see a problem, you go, okay, so why do I feel about it this way? Okay, that's my ego, or that's whatever it is. What is the nature of the problem, and what's the nature of getting to a solution that turns into an opportunity? And that sort of solution-minded thinking, I think, would be pretty critical.
Totally. And I think during the pandemic, I would say leaders have had to show more, it has to be sincere, more vulnerability, building relationships one-on-one, empathy. I don't think any of that's going to change. We have all this narrative in our head about things, and then the actions we take support that narrative, right? To justify it.
Right. We think we know our own story, but do we really?
No. And so that's why in a diverse team environment, you get different. If you're listening, you get different points of view, and you end up with a superior outcome because you have 10 lenses versus one.
So being open, I think listening is such a key moment there. Like not waiting for someone to reinforce the bias that you've brought for the conversation.
Correct.
And building on your own bias.
Correct.
But figuring out, I hadn't considered that, and actually moving to where the conversation and everyone's expertise around the table. That's really interesting. So that, I guess, is one way that you can change your own personal lens.
Correct.
Just by being committed to that. Are there other ways you've seen?
Yeah, and Kevin, it's active listening.
Ah.
When you've talked to people and you're exchanging, and say you're talking and that person you think is listening, they're not listening. They've just stopped talking. And then when it's their turn, they just keep going forward. So it's got to be it's like meditating. It's really, really, really hard. Active listening is really, really, really hard because you have to put your own judgment aside to completely open to someone else's point of view. It seems simple, but it's complicated.
Well, and it may not have been the skill that got you into that position of leadership in the first place, right? I mean, so often people get places because of how they were able to roll things up a hill and how they were able to stand out.
Yes.
It sounds like you're telling me that, like, when you're in a leadership position, this is a very different skill that's required.
It's interesting. I was just dealing with someone who technically off the charts. And I said to her, what got you here is not going to get you there. And so you actually now need to change the lens on the camera and look at it very, very differently. And Kevin, not a lot of people can do that because we all like to do what we like to do, and we all default what we're good at. And that's where a lot of careers stall. Which is fine, but it's not. You want a CEO leading in an organization, whether it's charity, private, public, who always is pushing and pushing, and when the situation seems dire, they push one or twice more with tenacity and conviction, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And when you see a whole team doing that, it's magical.
Well, especially in the era that, we're emerging into, where, corporations are having to talk to people in different ways, and leadership is having to be much more inclusive in how it thinks and listen much, much better. I mean, there was, and I'm sure you've heard it too, there was a theory of leadership that, and often this is true in politics, where don't bother tackling a problem until it reaches a certain level of urgency, because you don't have enough power to reach that solution. In other words, you can't solve everything at this level.
Right.
Wait till it percolates and wait till it gets to the top, and then you might have a better chance of success. Do you think that that's a way to proceed in this new world?
I think it's a little bit industry specific. So let's take the aviation sector. airframe manufacturers. Conservative, have to be conservative because there are so many components and so many suppliers that go into building that you can't address each problem because one problem generates another problem somewhere. So it's a whole system. But Kevin, in the software sector, you're changing, addressing problems all the time, and you're reinventing yourself, and it's like oxygen. You're doing it all the time. And so different industries do it differently. A lot of people shy away from problems, and maybe that's why some problems aren't addressed, because the anxiousness that goes with some leaders around doing something, the anxiety is actually bigger than the act itself. And then when I talk to them afterwards, I'll say, how do you feel now? They go, I should have done it before, because the anxiousness. And a lot of CEOs I know like to be liked. And so if there's a difficult decision to be made around an executive, it's amazing how gut-wrenching that is for many CEOs to make. And regrettably for other CEOs, it's not gut-wrenching at all.
Mm-hmm. So that goes to seeing it not necessarily as a problem, but as an opportunity waiting to happen.
Right. Yeah. If there's a path with no obstacles, I don't think that path leads anywhere. I really.
Or just leads backwards.
Or leads back, or doesn't go anywhere. It's because if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. Right? And I say this to people. Why do companies need to grow? And there's a lot of reasons. And to your point with ESG, there's going to be a lot more reasons to think about how you grow. But I often think organizations need to grow so they can bring in new, young, diverse people who have different perspectives, and it rejuvenates the organization with ideas. Because the world we live in now, everyone has access to a low cost of capital, technology. The only thing that differentiates success from failure is, your intellect and your creativity and your communication skills. And to your point about the world where we have just gone through, and hopefully will benefit from it going forward, the role of communication was always important. But man, oh man, it is. If you're not an effective communicator now in this format and communicating more, you're not going to have followership. A leader without followers is not a great leader.
Well, it's one measure of radiance.
Yes.
And if you're going to lead an organization, you have to radiate through it. It's not enough to just stay in your office and issue quarterly, emails anymore. You have to be seen to be managing it. So there's a lot of aspects to this new era of leadership that I look forward to talking to you more about as we go forward. But just to recap, I think what I heard from you today on how to deal with problems and see them as opportunities. You talk about outsmarting your own personal biases. You talked a little bit about checking yourself and making sure that you understand what you're bringing to the conversation, and listening genuinely, listening to the information that others provide you with, and then adjusting your lens so that you're not avoiding problems, but by seeing them as the potential to be opportunities and for new thinking. Fair?
I think embracing them, and then I just leave this is in the corny category, so I apologize. Just the one.
No, I love corn. Go for it.
How you change your lens. And so I've done this recently. I look at the weather forecast and it says a 30% chance of showers today. I look at it now and it goes, there's a 70% chance of sunshine.
That's just a good life lesson.
Yeah, it's how you look at it and go, okay, could rain, but there's a better chance it's going to be blue sky. So all good.
And blue sky's way better.
Yeah. All right. Thank
Jeff,
you very
thanks
much.
so much. That's good food for life, for work, and for leadership.
Great.
I look forward to our next one. Take care.
Likewise. Thanks, Kevin. Take care. Have a good afternoon.